Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the third and final session of this year's International Business and U Student Conference. Very happy to have you here. My name is Gina Cook, and I will be moderating this final session. And it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Jeannie Renee Malone, who is the Vice President of Global Sustainability at VF Corporation. And she leads sustainability across the whole VF suite of brands, operations, supply chain, materials, and products. And for those of you that might not be familiar with the brands that VF owns, I definitely guarantee you know the brands. They're outdoor brands like Timberland, North Face, Smartwool, etc. And Jeannie will tell you a lot more about that. We're very lucky to have her here today. She is a leader in the field of sustainability, and she's integrated circular design, sustainable materials, and innovation across the VF portfolio of brands. She's actually an alumna of DU as well, and where she completed an MA in International Finance and Development. And she is currently a board member of University of Denver, as well as the Mile High chapter of American Red Cross. And we're very happy to have you with us today. Welcome, Jeannie. You can hear me okay, I hope?
I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, can hear you perfectly. Thank you so much for joining us. Jeannie and I are going to work on a couple logistics in terms of transformation, but go ahead, the floor is yours.
Okay, wonderful. I'm just going to share my screen, and Gina, if you could kindly let me know if you can see my slides.
I certainly will. Yep, I see your slides, and I see your extra next slides as well.
Okay, do you see just my screen, or do you see all the notes and everything?
I see all the upcoming stuff.
Okay, I don't, I might need a quick moment to figure out how to get it into the just
in our last session too, so no worries.
Okay. I have a Mac. Could you maybe let me know what I should click?
Try on play from start.
Okay. I wonder if it's like in one of these settings. I did a presentation last night up at CU, and this is how we set it up for last night. And now I think it's stuck in this mode.
Hey, Jeannie, I think if you hit swap displays up at the top.
Oh, thank you.
Should be all set.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kayla.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we're ready to get started. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. It is such an honor, and it sounds like you've had a fantastic day. I was able to sit on a part of the last session, which is quite different from mine, but gave you some really great foundation of what's happening in the supply chain arena. And what I'm going to focus on today is really more on sustainability and circular economy. So hopefully that's what you're excited to hear about, and I'll just get started. So first, what I thought I would do is just give you a little bit of an overview of my background, my career, and my purpose journey. I know many of you might be getting ready to explore where this fantastic education will take you next. So I just thought I would give you a little bit of insight of what I've done throughout my career, my education career, my professional career. But first, I'll just start and say that a little bit about my role at VF. So I lead global sustainability. I work across multiple functions, regions around the world, and across all of our brands, which I'll talk about in just a moment. And I've been here for about 4.5 years. And in my role, I'm responsible for everything related to environmental sustainability. So you probably hear a lot of use of the words CSR, ESG, sustainability kind of used interchangeably. And here at VF, we think about sustainability as our environmental work. And then we have a lot of other functions focused on the responsibility side of our work, which is how we define the people within our factories, and then of course all the our associates and the people related there. So I'll talk about that a little bit in a moment as well, but just that I would let you know that my role truly is focused on environmental sustainability. So I'm going to go to the next slide and talk about my purpose journey. So this is a little bit of a snapshot, and I hope this is okay to go into this, but I think it's kind of fun to, kind of give a little bit of a background on how I got into this work. And you might see some of this reflected in your own background. And, feel free to ask a question at the end about, about this, or offer your own anecdote, which I think is really fun to do. But really my purpose journey started when I was very, very little. And I had the opportunity, when you look at my key influences, to be truly influenced by my family. And so my mom was a bilingual kindergarten teacher in a small town I grew up in Eastern Washington. And she spoke Spanish, and that's actually one of my passions. I also speak Spanish now. And she was teaching in this kindergarten class and realizing that a lot of the kids were showing up with muddy shoes, and they were falling asleep in class. And we grew up in this agriculture community. And so, of course, she realized that these were many of the students were working in the fields before school. So she worked with the local government to help change the rules around working in agriculture. And now I assume they've changed, and I know they've changed much more than that. But at the time, she was able to change the policy and the laws that kids could not work before school. So now that's like sort of the start of my eye-opening to child labor. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion on that today, but I think it's really important to note that when it's identified that that's a problem, there are ways to go about fixing it. And so she was a true champion in caring for people and really understanding the needs of people around her. She also realized that it was, for many of these kids were Spanish speakers, and that she was able to get some funding to start a bilingual kindergarten program, which by, understanding the needs of the people around her, she was able to really change how the school thought about education. And so that was my first really purview to social responsibility. When you think about the comprehensive ESG framework, really understanding the needs of people and addressing them in a way that is meaningful. Now, my dad is a world-renowned solar resource assessment guru, I like to say. So he really helped me understand the passion and the focus on using technology, innovation, policy, and collaboration to solve the world's problems. And so he worked in the area of solar energy his entire career. He still does. And so that's something that has given me a true passion as well. So if you look at the influences down at the bottom, I love to travel. I spent a lot of time backpacking around South America, around Europe, and especially during my time in South America, traveling down the Amazon. This is a long time ago, so very rustic in many ways of the way I was traveling. And I really got to see some of the communities that gave me the focus on how I wanted to spend my time as I pursued my career, really helping to solve problems in rural communities where there was no access to electricity or clean water. There was, bad air pollution in some of these larger cities. And so it really gave me that focus and understanding. Plus, I just love to travel. I speak Spanish. I love salsa music. That's like next influence down there. And then, prior to that big backpacking trip, I went to the University of Washington. I'm from Washington originally. I'm a big Husky fan, if anyone else is on the phone. I studied at Universidad de Sevilla during my undergrad. And then, after, my trip around South America is when I really got to be focused on climate change. So you can see that next symbol there. And I went on to study at University of Denver in the Corbell School of International Studies with a focus on renewable energy and international finance and development that really led me to where I am in my career today. So fast forward, you can see some of these other influences, some of the other places I've worked, like NREL, Prologis. I've done a lot of work with the Clinton Global Initiative over years. And then importantly, my family continues to be a big influence. And now I have, I'm married to my husband, Sean, and our son, Max, who is now 12 and in middle school, plays a big role in how I think about future generations. So that's a little bit about how I am. I'm really proud and honored that it started with my family, and it continues to be because of my family, of what I spend my time doing every day. So now I'm going to show a video that is going to give you hopefully a bit of excitement. There's like some fun music, so I hope you can hear this. Gina, ping me if you can't hear the sound, but this is going to give you a kind of an introduction to VF. And so VF is one of the world's largest apparel footwear companies, and you will see some of our brands highlighted here.
VF is a company that won't stand still because everything we do is designed to activate you. Our family of brands are aligned in keeping you agile. Connecting with you, the maker, the mover, the explorer, helping you get inspired, get out into the world, get together for each other and the planet. It's about being comfortable in your skin and uncomfortable with the status quo. When you think of VF, think of why you won't stand still. Remember why you're always in motion and why it's essential to do what you love.
All right, let's see if I can go to the next slide before, oh no, how do I go to the next?
Coloradans are coming together to say yes on Prop HH. From teachers and firefighters to small businesses, the League of Women Voters, and the AARP, they all agree. Prop will help seniors and our most vulnerable stay in their homes.
What's going on? Okay, here we go. No, it's still going. Hold on 1 second.
You're gonna have to reshare your screen.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone. 1 second. Oh, I see what's happening. There we go. I'm so sorry. Technology is not my thing. I do sustainability. So 1 second, I had to close my presentation altogether. So let me get back to where we were. Have any questions showed up in the chat yet so far?
No, but
Okay.
we're saving them all up to the end.
Okay, I truly apologize for the okay, so let's see here now. Let's see if I can do this again. I don't have videos until the end again. Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Okay,
Thank
wonderful. Okay, so let's keep going. So here is a kind of snapshot of our brands that hopefully you all got excited about when you saw the video, and really want to focus on the fact that we are outdoor activewear brands. And so what I'd like to demonstrate with that video is that it truly is, I feel proud because it represents a lot of what I care about, which is spending time outdoors, enjoying clean air, and hiking mountains, doing things that we can do because we have the benefit of having a clean environment to do so in. So that's a little bit about my background and how it ties to the company. And let's see here we go. And so just a few facts and figures about VF. So we are about 35,000 associates around the world. We are operating in about 125 countries. We have 12 brands, and our revenue is about 11.6 billion. And I think an interesting fact here is that we produce about 360 million units of product every year. And when you think about that, that's about 1 million units a day. And so that makes the world that I live in quite complex. That means that when we were thinking about apparel, footwear, accessories, and how we apply a sustainability lens, how we work toward our public facing goals, which I'll talk about here in a moment, that it's a pretty complex world. So I'll go to the next slide. And here is where we are located. I'm sitting here in our Denver headquarters here on Wawata Street. For any of you that happen to be downtown, we're right by Union Station. We have a couple of other regional offices, one in Singapore where I have a team based there. We have another team based in Stabio, Switzerland. And then some of our brands are located in their original headquarters. And this was important. Actually, we moved to Denver, our headquarters here, about back in 2019. And the reason was to get the majority of our brands located in one spot, so we could have a cohesive strategy and vision around our production, our, everything related to our supply chain and all sorts of different functions. And but some of our brands, because they are very close to the culture and the consumer base and their unique locations, like Vans being in Costa Mesa, or Timberland in Stratham, New Hampshire, it just made sense to leave them there. So the majority of our brands are here, but we do have brands in other parts of the world. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to what I think is hopefully an interesting part of this presentation for, we think about why we do the work we do in sustainability. And, I mentioned a couple of times, we're an outdoor activewear, umbrella of companies or umbrella of brands. So we care about the environment, but there are a lot of other drivers that really kind of encourage us to think about sustainability in a deeper way. And I wanted to just talk about those to give you a bit of background. So it starts with some of these environmental impacts of our industry. And some of these impacts are pretty appalling and pretty big. And so you think about fashion accounts for about 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions. That's a lot. And this is a conservative estimate. Some studies show that we are responsible for up to 20%. And so when you think about that, it's everything from sourcing our materials to logistics to factory operations. It's a lot that goes into this. And so it's our responsibility to minimize our impacts and continue to create a healthy environment where people can enjoy our products outside for generations to come. Our industry accounts for about a fifth of the 300 million tons of plastic produced globally every year. And that's a combination of the poly bags you see that, come in packaging, the fabric that, or, plastic-based fabric like polyester, which is a petroleum-based. I mean, there's a lot of petroleum-based fibers, I should say, that go into a lot of apparel companies, and so there's a big opportunity for us to do material switching. The U.S. throws away equivalent of about 70 pairs of pants per person from waste and clothes and footwear each year. So 70 pairs of pants. I mean, I don't know who has 70 pairs of pants in their closet, but imagine if you did and you threw them all away every year. That's a lot. So it's a lot of waste that we generate, which again, it means it's a big opportunity for us to focus. And then this is an important one too, that 35% of the microplastics found in oceans can be traced to textiles. And so you've probably heard these different statistics. My son likes to quote the one that by 2050, there'll be more plastic in the ocean than fish. So it's another big responsibility given how much we depend on the ocean for our planet. So let me go to the next slide. And then I've mentioned this a couple of times, but it really is about our business purpose. And so you can see it up here on the screen. We're really focused on betterment of people on the planet as part of our business purpose, and we see sustainability as enabling our business purpose. So you'll hear me talk about this a bit throughout the presentation, but it's also kind of back to my own personal and professional purpose, and feel very honored to work for a company that shares the same purpose and vision that I do. So I'll give you a little bit of a framework of how we think about sustainability and responsibility at VF. And so we have set a framework that's aligned with some of the standards in the industry. If you've heard of the Global Reporting Initiative or SASB or some of these other types of frameworks, that's what we've used to align our different topics within our framework. And so we like to use people, planet, and products. It's kind of a general way of how we think about and bucket our different activities around the company. And that also allows us to focus, set targets, and then track progress toward our goals. And so here you'll see under products, it's really about, stewardship, product stewardship, and thinking about the chemicals that we put into our products, and how do we make sure that we aren't putting any bad chemicals that would get on skin of people or get into the environment. We think about circularity, and I'll talk about that a bit more later, and then traceability. So one kind of fun thing to do is, if you go to our website, you can see that we've produced a number of traceability maps that allow you to trace an entire, like say a Vans checkerboard shoe, from the very beginning of its product life, when we're sourcing the material, and all the way to the end where it goes to our consumer. And you can see along the way the number of factories, the places in the world where we've produced this product, and the different parts of it that gets produced along the way, the people who touch the product. And so there's millions of people around the world that produce our products. And so we always have to be thinking about their health and well-being as well. So then planet, this is the area where I focus. And so, we are very focused on, supporting bold global systemic change that is needed to minimize the climate crisis. And so we have a number of initiatives that we work across, minimizing energy, waste, water, and making sure that we're combating climate change, so that we can, have a healthy community for people around the world. Suppliers are a big part of this, and I'll talk about our supplier sustainability program, and then materials, which is also a big part of our program and our initiatives. And then finally, people. So it's why would we save the planet if we didn't have the people to care about? And so we have a lot of initiatives around our own associates in terms of talent and diversity, health and safety, but also when we think about the workers across our factories around the world, we have a big focus on human rights, worker rights, women's rights, and to make sure that the people that are producing our products are doing so in a safe and healthy environment. And so another driver really of how we define our initiatives is based on the targets that we've set in our public facing goals. And again, these are aligned with the purpose of betterment of people and the planet. So a few years ago, we published our science-based targets, and hopefully this is common terminology for many of you. If not, let me know and I can provide some additional resources afterwards. But we've set targets in line with the Science-Based Target Initiative, which is the entity that approves targets like these, to reduce our Scope 1 and 2 emissions 55% by 2030, and our Scope 3 emissions 30% by 2030 from a 2017 baseline. So this really drives a lot of our collaboration across the company, our initiatives, and just our focus on reducing emissions. And I do want to say that even though we do focus on carbon as a key KPI, we want to make sure that we don't like to say that we like to say we don't have carbon blinders. We know that there's other important KPIs such as biodiversity, water, just a lot of other things that help guide our focus. But carbon today is the primary KPI that's recognized by investors and others. And so we appreciate the fact that there's frameworks out there for measuring our reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Related to that, we do have a net zero by 2050 target. We also have a goal to power all of our direct operations with renewable energy by fiscal year 26. And that means our direct operations include our distribution centers, our retail stores, and our retail stores, our distribution centers, and our corporate offices. And so we are on our way to meeting this goal through a combination of on-site renewable energy, purchasing of renewable energy credits, and some other innovative transactions that we're exploring. And then our sustainable materials vision is really a main pathway to meeting our science-based targets. And we have an aim that our top materials like polyester, rubber, leather shall originate from regenerative, responsibly sourced, renewable, or recycled sources as part of our roadmap to meeting our targets. And I have a couple slides later that kind of outlines what that means. But again, just continue to think about the fact that our biggest opportunity for reducing our impact is based on our materials and our supply chain, so the factory operations across our supply chain. And then finally, even though packaging isn't a really large impact from a carbon perspective, it's very consumer facing. And so we've set a number of packaging goals just to make sure that when we ship products to our consumers, that there's not a misunderstanding of, or any sort of confusing message that we're working so much on sustainability, but then you receive a pair of shoelaces that's inside a poly bag, inside a box, and that's, everyone knows how annoying that is. So we have a lot of work around that to minimizing our packaging footprint. So another key driver, and hopefully you've been following some of the California legislation and other investor interest around risk. And so we, a few years ago, put together a climate risk assessment, and we aligned that with the TCFD, which is the Task Force on Financial Related Disclosures. And so what we did is worked across our company, across multiple functions, and with a consultant to really put together a framework to help us understand what are our key risks today, what are those drivers, and what are our key mitigations today and into the future that can help reduce those impacts that you can see over there on the top right, including rising costs of raw materials and energy, really continue to maintain our reputation, minimize business interruption, revenue losses. Green financing is a key area that I've been involved with for many years because we issue green bonds and do other innovative financing mechanisms like that. But then you can look across the bottom and see kind of probably a trend in what I've been saying already is that, we see these emerging climate and sustainability regulations, such as what came out of California. We're seeing a lot around extended producer responsibility that really influence how we think about our overall, not just our sustainability strategy, but how ultimately we'll design, manufacture, and ship our products in the future. And so with that increased regulation comes an opportunity to better organize ourselves and think about all the work that we do through a sustainability lens and have the appropriate data to track that and be in compliance. So the next bucket here is the physical risks to our supply chain based on climate events. And so you can think about that from droughts that impact the cotton that we're able to source, or just impacts that disrupt our supply chain from a shipping perspective. So what we saw during COVID is perfect examples that was more of a not based on climate change, although that's a whole other conversation. But think about all the disruptions to our supply chain that happened during that time, and then add that climate lens to it, and it really exacerbates what we could see in terms of interruption. Shifts in consumer preferences. So there's been a shift, as we know, as we've seen anecdotally, of consumers that place a preference to what they choose to purchase based on their values. So we see that increasingly. And then finally, reputational risks. The risk of not being able to meet our public facing goals and having investors not just note that we haven't made a goal, or potentially product waste being a risk. And so all of this kind of bucketed into these 4 areas. So I think it's important to outline that risk and opportunity plays a key role in a sustainability strategy and how we think about the work that we do here at VF. And now I just have a couple slides on the emerging regulatory landscape. And this is a slide that's a bit messy, but it just kind of shows the many emerging regulatory and policies that are coming out of the EU, out of the US, and other parts of the world that are really impacting, like I said earlier, how we design, manufacture, ship our products, how we communicate to consumers around labeling and product claims. And so all these different topics on the left are in development. Some of them have been put into place, like we now have to report on deforestation. There's some due diligence, forced labor requirements that we have to report on in Europe. And increasingly, we're seeing more and more. So what we saw happen in California a couple of weeks ago, and the governor signed on, is that now we have to disclose our scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions in the state of California because of the size of our business. And we also have to disclose climate risk. So increasingly different jurisdictions, whether it be a state in the US or an EU member state or the EU as a whole, are really forcing us to think about how we are responsible for what we produce. And that kind of goes into the next slide, which is, I think, important for this audience. When you think about, as a producer, in which we, produce products, we are responsible for the end of life of those products and increasingly the packaging as well. So there's a number of these extended producer responsibility requirements that are popping up around the world that require us as the producer to pay for collection, sorting, and recycling after use so that we can minimize waste from our products and packaging. There's a number of ways that we can try to minimize how much we pay in terms of fees. And this slide outlines those. And so this is about a year old, but you can see that we're already paying about $1.5 million and euros around the world in just for shipping our product into different countries. And the way that we can reduce those fees is through minimizing our packaging footprint, using more recycled materials. And so this is one of these compliance requirements that actually is a catalyst to advancing progress toward our goals. And so these aren't always, bad things to have in place. I think it's really important to have different government entities around the world driving sustainability in many ways. And so it's exciting to see these pop up. It's a lot of work, but it's also, important to keep in mind the reason why it's happening is because we truly are trying to be responsible and oops, that's changed without me being ready for it. But so let me go on to a little bit more about our footprint, and I promise this will get into circularity. So our value chain is the largest contributor of our business. So when we think about from a greenhouse gas protocol perspective, scope 1, 2, and 3, I won't go into detail on all of that. Hopefully you have a little bit of background. You can look it up afterwards. Our scope 1 and 2 emissions, which is really our direct impacts and as well as the purchased electricity in our buildings, accounts for only 1% of our global greenhouse gas footprint. Scope 3 is everything else. So let's talk a little bit about what is that everything else. Here's a snapshot of our inventory from fiscal year 22. Our data lags about a year behind. And so we are in the process of calculating our FY23 inventory. But here you can see what we cover, in the last year. So we have about 5.3 million metric tons as a result of our business. And if you look on the left-hand side, this is what I think is interesting. It really is the majority, so 70% of our impacts comes from raw material extraction, processing, and production. So that's materials and factory operations. That's why we focus so much on material substitution, how we can work with our suppliers. We don't own any of our manufacturing, so it's all contracted suppliers, how we can help them maximize operational efficiency in their factories, look for opportunities for rooftop solar and so forth. And so that's a big part of what we focus on within my team and others, and also looking for those circularity opportunities. So the more that we can reuse our own materials into our products or use fabric shavings from the factory floor, the more that we are minimizing our impact, which is, again, really focused there on the raw materials and factories. And then here's just a snapshot of how do we work toward progress toward our science-based targets. And so we've done a good job so far. This is last year's data. We're getting ready to publish our report next year, so I can't disclose where we are in terms of our most recent inventory, but you can see here we are trending in the right direction. We have implemented a number of greenhouse gas emission reduction strategies, such as on-site renewable energy in our own operations, sustainable buildings, and then also across scope 3 through sustainable materials, factory operations, circularity, waste elimination. Through all these initiatives, we are seeing a decrease in our emissions. And so there's both here an absolute emissions, which is how our target is stated, but we can also see that there's a per unit carbon impact decrease year over year, which is really exciting. So that means like each product is becoming more sustainable the more that we substitute materials and the more that we improve those factory operations. And then here's just a little bit more of a deep dive of what are those different strategies that we can use across our entire business. So talked a lot about scope 1 and 2, talked about materials. Logistics is another area where we can think about when we, choose a shipping partner such as Maersk, they are also implementing a number of their own sustainability initiatives and encouraging investment in biofuels or helping think about route efficiencies. So there's a lot of exciting opportunities to partner with our shipping partners and to help lean in on the initiatives they're trying to promote as part of what they're trying to do. And it just shows the collaboration across industries is so important as we work toward these goals. And so that's an important area to think about. And then I talked about the factory operations as well. And the arrow at the bottom really demonstrates the fact that it's important to highlight that we know that circularity initiatives will contribute to our progress, but today there isn't really good data or methodologies that is approved by the Science-Based Target Initiative or the Greenhouse Gas Protocol that allow us to track progress toward our goals using circularity initiatives. So think about the fact that, when there's a reverse logistics where we're getting product back into our hands from a consumer, and then maybe the energy intensity used to repair a product, but then we're not creating a new product, we're replacing what would have been a new product with a used product, keeping it in life longer. And so those types of methodologies are still evolving. And so we're actively working with the entities that are developing those methodologies to make sure we can get credit in the future. Okay, so I'm just going to talk a bit more before I get into circularity for the next bit about what we're doing across Scope 2. I think I did mention this already in my opening, that we use about 3% of on-site renewable energy across our direct operations. And that is only based because we have a pretty small building footprint. But then the rest of the way to get to our Scope 2 initiative or our goal is really through renewable energy credits, and investment in certain investment opportunities such as tax equity. And so last year we initiated one of the largest tax equity projects, which was we were a developer and investor in a large project in South Carolina that produced 4 utility scale solar projects. And so the renewable energy credits that are generated as a result of that go toward our goals and targets. And so there's a lot of really exciting opportunities for us to be an investor in some of those utility scale projects. And then the benefit is that because the federal government has a tax benefit, then we can actually generate revenue over time. So we're always exploring those kinds of opportunities. And then for our Scope 3 reduction efforts, it's across these 3 areas that I've already talked about quite a bit. Again, the ability to track progress toward our goals is based on data quality and methodologies that are still in development. Okay, so I'm going to spend just a second talking about materials. I've talked about this so much, but to put it at a bit more perspective, you can see over there on the left, these are our top 9 materials. And so it puts it into perspective of, when you think about polyester, that's in a shirt, or cotton, that's also in a shirt or a jacket, rubber that's on the sole of a shoe, leather that's in one of our boots. You can kind of think about where we are focusing our efforts. And when we have an opportunity to lean in on a material substitution, I like to think about there's 2 pathways here. One is increasing our access to and our sourcing of commercially available sustainable raw materials, such as recycled polyester, getting away from virgin polyester. Another pathway is creating our new captive supply of sustainable raw materials. And we're seeing that as an opportunity in the regenerative agriculture space. So we have a number of pilots around the world that we're actively working with farmers, growers, and ranchers on the ground to help them convert land from monoculture agriculture practices to regenerative practices. And what this means is really getting it back to that original state of land where there's an ability to store more carbon in the ground than is emitted to the atmosphere. And then once we go through this pilot with farmers, growers, and ranchers, we then have the ability to source materials from those projects, and we get a carbon benefit for that. There's also a number of other benefits. These farmers are now, in many cases, able to diversify their income through selling fruit or honey in addition to maybe rubber, for example, in Thailand, where we have a large project. So there's a lot of co-benefits to this kind of work. And so I'll just mention, like, one of our most exciting projects is we invested in a small pilot a few years ago in Thailand to help rubber farmers there convert their land to regenerative agriculture. And what's been really exciting is to see the interest grow, the sort of the understanding of the economic benefits, the health benefits. And now the small cooperative that we worked with originally, the work has expanded across many parts of Thailand. And this has become a very important part of our supply chain, because now we are sourcing all, well, not all, but we have the ability to source in the future all of our needed natural rubber that is converted to regenerative rubber from this part of Thailand. So it's a really exciting opportunity. And there's already products out on the market today across Vans, the North Face, and Timberland that are using this regenerative rubber in our products. And so that's just one example. We're doing the same in New Zealand with wool. We're working a lot with cotton in the US. So this is a really exciting area that we see a lot of potential for us. And then I think another, great opportunity is that in the future, we see, and we're actually already seeing this, the opportunity to partner with other industries. And so when you think about leather, the dairy industry also has a vested interest in cattle, as does the meat industry. And so we can partner with the food industry. And there's a big initiative you might hear about, food and fashion around regenerative, which is exciting. And then there's other industries like the rubber industry with tires and others that might be looking at the same place of where we source our rubber. So our sourcing strategy is evolving as we think about where we can source from more sustainable locations, where we might be able to scale up these pilots with other partners. Coffee is another industry that we can, co-plant coffee within rubber. So lots of great, exciting opportunities here. Okay, so now I'm going to just touch on circularity. I just have a couple more slides and a couple more videos, which hopefully those will work better than my first one did. But I like to kind of set the stage with circularity. And this truly is, we think about from a global and local implication of how we think about circularity. And hopefully you got the sense too, when our sourcing is very dependent upon, different parts of the world, whether it's rubber in Thailand or cotton in the US or cotton in India. So we always have to have this like global and local perspective. Circularity is certainly a really good way to put that in context. And so our circularity vision is truly holistic. It starts with the materials that we put into our products, how we design our products, and where those materials come from, whether they originate from regenerative agriculture types of sources, or if they're recycled materials that begin with. And so we always want to think about when we start the process, it's with using sustainable materials as a start. We then, go through the design process of how we design our products for maybe recyclability, disassembly, durability, to make sure that these products can be in use for a very long time with their life cycle. The lower half of the right-hand side is all about how we work with our suppliers to reduce resource consumption and industrial waste, reduce pre-consumer waste. So like the scraps that fall on a factory floor, how can we use them into our products? And think about that very holistically from a factory and resource consumption perspective. Then we go back to the other side of the circle. Once the product gets into the consumer's hand, we want to be able to incentivize take back. So, and this is very regional. So we want to incentivize take back here in the US so that we can recycle those products or put those products back on a re-commerce platform. And it's just more efficient to do so if we keep that within our own region. So we have initiatives in Europe, we have initiatives in Asia, and here in the US that really, think about the take back programs and how we repair, reuse, and recycle and resell them here. And then we're getting more into a mode of reusing the materials from those products into our products here in the same location, like North America, essentially. So the goal here at the end of the day is to extend the product and material life cycle. And you'll see that arrow off to the left is that eventually we can also be a feedstock into another industry. So say our recycled cotton can go into another type of industry. Our rubber could go into being ground up and used in playground materials or playground floors. And so there's a lot of opportunity here for a holistic view for circularity. And then here's just a few initiatives that we have underway. I'll show a little video about Smartwool and our second cut project, but essentially we've done a very big sock take back program in partnership with consumers and retailers to really get those socks out of your drawer that you don't wear anymore, that maybe have a hole in it, or maybe your dog ate one of them. Let's get them back into our hands so that we can shred them and use them, whether it goes into a dog bed or sort them. So we have all of our own socks together, and then reuse those, shred them and turn them into yarn to reuse into a circular hiking sock, which we now have on the market. We also, in the middle, you can see our Timberland brand has designed a design for disassembly shoe that is easier to disassemble at the end of its life. It's still durable. It doesn't disassemble while you're wearing it, but it allows us to more easily take it apart and reuse those materials in the future. And then the North Face Renewed. Hopefully you've been to this platform. It's our resale program for lightly used North Face products that have been repaired and can go back on the market at a better price point for those that are considering that. So let me go to, I'm going to attempt another video. All right, let's see if I can go to the next one. And here's a video about the North Face. Sorry, let's see if I can try this again.
This jacket is a circle.
I've got the perfect one.
It's thinking about our future first. It's a new design for a better world. Explore the new circular design collection. It's more than a jacket.
Okay. And just to kind of wrap up before we go into Q&A, I do want to mention that a lot of these initiatives can't happen without the appropriate policies in place. And so we do a lot of advocacy, and we get very involved in different initiatives that are being proposed, such as, some of the EPR legislation that's popping up around the US or in Europe. And really what we're trying to do is raise our voice for climate policy and really advocate for environmental protection enforcement overall, investments and incentives for regenerative agriculture, renewable energy investment. And a big one here is recycling infrastructure, that the more that we can improve our own recycling structure here locally and in each region around the world, we have more of an opportunity to recycle textiles, to get them out of the landfill, get them out of the ocean, and really use them back into our products and into other industries' products as well. And then finally, I think I just included this, as I mentioned this a couple of times, that we're always looking for innovative ways to connect financial transaction with a sustainability KPI. And so this is, I think, important because it shows that increasingly there's an interest from the investor community to partner with us on our sustainability initiatives, and that will only increase with time, we hope. So that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Jeannie. That was just like, I'm so interested in this topic, and I really appreciate being able to see like examples from brands that I know and love. And so we have some questions in the Q&A, and I will add to those as we go along, if that's okay. The first one is, Jeannie, tracing the impact can be extremely difficult. Are there any processes that you have implemented that you're proud of that help VF Corporation trace the impact of all initiatives that are put forward?
So if I'm reading the question right, or hearing the question right, so I think this ties back to data quality and how we kind of track our progress toward our goals. Hopefully I'm getting that right, for tracing the impact.
Mhm.
There are a number of standards out there that help us understand responsible sourcing of materials and so forth. And we utilize all of those standards and methodologies in our throughout our value chain. Is that kind of hitting the question?
Yes, thank you so much. When it comes to your take back initiatives, for example, I think that's a really interesting area that seems like it might be growing here in North America. I know there's some take back initiatives that have existed in Europe for a while, and I'm wondering, in terms of like the regulatory environment and maybe consumer expectations with regard to that whole process, do you see some big differences between regions, or how's the kind of emerging opportunities for customers when it comes to the take back?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really am optimistic about some of these emerging regulations and requirements that are going to put more structure around take back programs and recipients. And so right now, the collection side of take back is a little bit challenging. And so if you go to stores where you see a bin, often you can bring as many items as you want to from any brands, or some stores and some brands only allow you to take back just their own product. And the reason for that is because that keeps it cleaner for sorting if you want to reuse the materials and not mix. Maybe a company out there isn't paying as much attention to the chemicals that go into the product. So if we're going to be, shredding things, we want to keep that all separated. So there's a big opportunity for separation of product, for sorting, and then there's a real need for improvement in recycling infrastructure overall. And that includes everything from collection, sorting, and then the recycling partner at the end of the day. And today our recycling part of our economy is not super incentivized. And so there is a great need to figure out how to make those companies more profitable and how to incentivize consumers to really take their products back. So it's starting with us now, the company with extended producer responsibility requirements going into place. But I think ultimately it's all about, we have to do this hand in hand with the consumer. So the consumer knows where to go to take their product, knowing that it's going to a responsible place. Because the last thing we want is, some entity collecting all of these products and then not having anything to do with them. And then there's no, at the end of the day, some like poor responsible action is initiated. So we just want to make sure that as we move forward, that all the steps are put in place and the right incentives are put in place so that we can do this appropriately.
Thank you very much. I've kind of follow-on question. You have recommendations about where consumers can find information about, where they can extend the life cycle, or how, or maybe there are labels or so forth that are something that we can look for in terms of minimizing our impact or increasing our information awareness?
Yeah, so I think this is a new emerging area as well. So I think what's happening in Europe with new requirements around labels is also requiring sort of this digital product passport that we hear about a lot, where we'll be able to find all sorts of information on a label. So it won't be like this extra hang tag anymore. It'll be a QR code that will allow you to know more about where the material and the products came from, the labor situation of where those products were made, and then also how to care for the product. So a lot of our merino wool products, for example, don't require washing every single time because it's such a high quality wool. So it'll give you that care information. And then finally, the idea in the future is that it would also tell you what are the appropriate recycling and take back opportunities for that particular product. So I don't think it's fully enforced today, but it's where our vision is. And I think for the industry where we want to get to be. And there's some of that information now on websites and some of these producer responsibility organizations popping up that can help guide information. So here in Colorado, for example, we have a producer responsibility organization, or a PRO, that if you go to their website, which is the I'll have to think about that for a second. I can't remember their name off the top of my head. If someone knows that, please put it in the chat. But they have a lot of great resources for how to manage textile waste today. I mean, you see a lot of bins around the city. There are opportunities today, but it's I think it's still a question of what happens to that once you put that in that bin. So it's all improving. We need better governance, better incentives, and at the end of the day, a better infrastructure.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Our next question is, have you seen any challenges with compliance globally while working towards VF's sustainability goals?
Not today. I mean, we talk about this a lot of where we are with our compliance today. Today we're fully in compliance with all of the regulations and requirements that are out there. I think what we see in the future with new disclosure requirements, we know that we have some work to do to get our data to be auditable by a CPA type of firm, and we're working toward that. We also know that we need to disclose more information around on the social side, on deforestation. So we're actively preparing, we're monitoring all these emerging regulations very closely. But I would say today we are very much in compliance.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So there's a question in our chat about transparency when you acquire brands, for example, like that have a long life, maybe before they were acquired by VF. So how do you deal with how do you champion brands when maybe they haven't had a history of being super transparent?
Yeah, we I wonder if this question came about Supreme, which is our newest acquisition. And so we purchased Supreme a couple of years ago, and our integration policy is really, about 18 months or so. And so we spend quite a bit of time on, building awareness of the data that we need for our sustainability disclosures, for other, like our responsible sourcing disclosures. And so there's quite a lot of engagement. Now Supreme is fully integrated into our greenhouse gas inventory. So it just takes a little bit of time, but we do have procedures in place for that integration process.
Thank you. Another question, do you track or monitor water usage or virtual water within your products? And do you have sustainability initiatives in place to address virtual water?
I don't know what virtual water is.
How about just regular water?
Okay, regular water, I can talk to that. So yes, we collect data across our direct operations and our suppliers. I should say with our suppliers, we use industry tools. There's one called the HIGG, H-I-G-G, a suite of tools. And one of their modules is the facility environmental module, which allows us to collect data from our suppliers on energy, water, waste, wastewater, and it gets all laddered up into us. And then that gives us an ability to identify where are those hotspots of, water overconsumption or energy overconsumption. Then we can help facilitate financial and technical resources to our suppliers to help them understand, how to minimize their impacts, which also provides operational savings to them. So back to water specifically, we do monitor water across our supply chain and across our direct operations. We did a water risk assessment last year to identify where are those most vulnerable areas from a water scarcity, water quality perspective. And now we're actively putting in place a risk management plan to address those places to make sure that we have a stable water supply, but we're also looking at it from a quality perspective, that what we're doing as a business is not contaminating any water. So we have a very robust wastewater program and compliance process with our suppliers, and we do a lot of audits to make sure that their discharge is going into the appropriate place. So lots of work around water. If anyone wants to clarify water, virtual water, that would be great.
Great, thank you so much. Let's see, I'm gonna ask one more sustainable question, then we're gonna shift gears really quick. So what would you say are the most significant upcoming innovations in sustainability, and how does VF plan to incorporate them into its business model?
Great question. So there's so many material innovations coming out that we're constantly testing different types of like mushroom leather or different algae that's used in materials. We're always keeping a close eye on these and how we could use those as a material substitution in the future. And I think regenerative agriculture as a scalable opportunity that really improves the lives of our farmers, but also improves the environment is something that we'll continue to lean into. There's other bigger picture opportunities that we hear about a lot that would be sort of very much and large investments on a larger scale, like carbon capture and things like that. But today we're really looking at those material innovations which are creating a lot of excitement for our brands.
Excellent, thank you so much. All right, my last two questions I'm going to put together. From the chat, we have, what has been the most influential aspect of your career to help you get where you are today? And what recommendations would you have for someone who is about to graduate? And I would add on to that, maybe opportunities for a new graduate or young professional to get into the sustainability sphere, regardless of industry.
Sure, I'll start with that one because then I can, while I'm maybe think about the first one. So there are so many opportunities for sustainability professionals, and you don't even have to be a sustainability professional to get into the sustainability arena. I think it's important, if you're looking for a job in this space, don't get hung up on the word sustainability or circularity. There are a lot of other types of jobs that are looking at like risk management or financial. And the reason I showed that green bond slide at the end is because there's a lot of financial, sustainable finance opportunities out there right now too. In government and policy, there's tons of opportunities for, where most elected officials have some sort of platform or some type of initiative around, agriculture or energy. And so there's just so much that you can be done in that space as well. So my recommendation is to keep an open mind and think about, what is it about sustainability that really drives you? Is it the waste aspect? Is it energy? Is it material consumption? And really think about if you want to go down a path of focus in that area, or more comprehensively, like where I've landed, being an in-house sustainability professional in this part of my career, which I'm really addressing all of the above, which is exciting, but there are also opportunities to go at a more narrow path. And often, I've said this to other groups as well, right now there's so much focus on getting ready for ESG disclosure and putting controls around data. So I'm seeing a lot of jobs pop up around ESG controllership, audits. And so even getting some exposure into one of the big four accounting firms could be an exciting like first step, or any consulting firm to get exposed to a bunch of different industries. And then in terms of like my most an influential part of my life, I guess it goes back to my childhood too. I worked, my first job was in an asparagus farm. And I saw firsthand what was happening around labor and pesticides. And so it really gave me a kind of an early eye-opening to where I thought I could make an impact in the future. They paid me in asparagus, and so I don't think that was quite fair. Now I don't even like asparagus. So so there's a lot of things I learned there, and that has carried me forward. And then also, I think early on, I really took the time to learn Spanish, and opening my, having another language, or even an interest in another language, another culture, opens up so many doors, and that can go across so many things outside of just the language barrier. Keep yourself open to building relationships. That's a key step in sustainability, is really being able to influence, having that sense of diplomacy, and really working together to solve complex problems.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate having you with us today. And gosh, so I have so many more questions, but we are slowly running out of time. So I'm going to say thank you very much for joining us. And we're very happy that everyone has been able to come and join us here. Such an interesting, like an engaging group of speakers today.